Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. Joe Samaniego here, along with Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish, Ben Schneider, Joshua Birch. Link in the video description to their channels. We got a lot to talk about on the show before NASCAR Cup Series Chicago race. A big thank you to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark, Robin, and our newest one, David. They invest in the Grid Network each and every month. Link in the video description. Help us pay the bills, stay on the air, and of course, our Buy Me a Coffee supporters. You set the amount, you set the frequency, even buy a cup of coffee for a particular person that's part of the Grid Network team. Show your appreciation for them. Kobe, very excited to have you back. And what a chaotic F1 race we just had, with the results just coming in again after penalties for track limits.
Yeah, lots of drama to discuss on tonight's Grid Live wrap-up show with the 2023 Austrian Grand Prix, which demonstrated Red Bull's dominant RB19, which absolutely controlled the race. At the start, Charles Leclerc challenged Max Verstappen to grab the early lead and get the clean air, but the battle was cut short with a lap one safety car for debris. Verstappen ran away with the win and appears to run away with the championship as well. Today was the ninth race of the 22 race calendar. 5 wins on a row for Verstappen, tied for 6th longest with Lewis Hamilton. Starting with you, Josh, with the halfway point of the season approaching, will the teams be able to somewhat compete against Red Bull with upgrades coming later in the season?
I'm really hopeful they will, because otherwise we're in for a dull season. I was sat there in the commentary. I was stood there in the commentary box. First 40 laps, my goodness, what a race! We were screaming out there going, "This is brilliant!" And then at the end of it as well, for the last 30 or so laps, I felt like that scene in The Shining, all work and no play makes Josh a dull boy or something like that. And it's like, I thought about changing it. All racing and no overtaking makes Red Bull a dull team, something like that, because it just was so dull as soon as he got back in front. I did like the fact that little record that Max had, where he led every single lap. He's led every single lap since Miami, lap 25. So for the last 2 months, he's led a lap nobody else did. Very glad that got changed today with Charles Leclerc. And to put Leclerc into P2 is a good sign for Ferrari. They're getting stronger. I think Mercedes had an okay day, but until everything else came up with the penalties, we'll get onto that later. But I think as soon as Red Bull hit that cost cap penalty, the way they can't develop the car further than the other teams can, we knew it was never going to affect Red Bull that much this year. It's always going to be the development of next year's car, which is weird. You break the rules in 2021, you pay for it 3 years later. It's weird because they're not going to get a penalty for it until 2024. And that's what I find really ridiculous. That needs to be sorted out quite quickly, because I'm sure the teams will, I'm sure every team on the grid will go, okay, we'll dominate this sport for 3 years. We'll just have a rubbish 1 year. They would, of course, they do that. So the cost cap needs to a bit of work there. But that will come into effect soon, later on this season. It's going to be, I keep stressing it, a good year. And Silverstone next up, which is going to be a track that always provides entertainment. And it's Max's bogey track. It's only won there once. And that wasn't even called the British Grand Prix. It was the 70th anniversary Grand Prix during the lockdown of COVID in August 2020. So we've got a lot to look forward to, a real lot to look forward to. And I think today gave us the good hope that just because there's a car out front dominating, there is going to be action so much behind. Take away the Max and Perez today, it would have been a fantastic Grand Prix once again. It still was a fantastic Grand Prix, let's not forget.
Josh, I hope you're right, and I hope I'm going to be proven wrong, but I just don't see it happening. I mean, this is a guy, Max Verstappen, that went out and absolutely dominated today. Like Kobe said, he was so dominant that he had enough time to come into the pits on the final lap and put the soft tires on and just make sure he got the fastest lap for good measure. And he still won by a handful of seconds. I mean, Red Bull are just so far ahead right now. I don't see the teams being able to close the gap that much, even if Red Bull's cost cap penalties are starting to be felt later in this season. You know, they might not have the perfect season. They might not win every race. I do think Sebastian Vettel's record of 9 wins in a row that he had in the Red Bull 10 years ago, I think that could be in jeopardy if Verstappen can keep this stretch going. But the championship's over. It's decided. Let's engrave a trophy right now. Max Verstappen is going to be the World Drivers' Champion. Red Bull is going to be the World Constructors' Champion. I don't see any way Ferrari, Aston Martin, Mercedes, I don't see any of them getting up there to challenge Red Bull consistently enough to bring the fight for a championship this season. Maybe they can win a race or two each, but I think even that's a little bit optimistic at this point.
Yeah, I definitely have to side with Ben on everything here. It's super unfortunate that Formula One is not really competitive this year, and got to tip your hat to Red Bull. They've maximized all of their resources, built a really good car, and they have one of the best drivers in the world in Max Verstappen driving that car. So when you have a great driver, great car, you're gonna see a whole bunch of success like this. And like Ben, I also don't think Red Bull is going to win every race this season, because at some point you have to think they're going to run into bad luck, and things are just going to fall apart for at least one race weekend. And maybe that one race weekend could be the upcoming one at the British Grand Prix, as Josh had mentioned, that Max Verstappen has one win at Silverstone, the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, which wasn't even the main British Grand Prix itself. Ben, could this be everyone's best chance at dethroning Max for a weekend?
I'd like to think maybe it's Lewis Hamilton's best chance. I know it's his home race. I know he always gets fired up every time he comes back to Silverstone, and he'll certainly have the home field advantage, I guess, if you will. It was a sea of orange in the stands today in Austria for Max Verstappen. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of British flags out there cheering on Lewis Hamilton when we get to Silverstone. But again, I don't know if that morale boost alone is going to be enough to, take the fight to Red Bull and dethrone them and challenge for a win at this point in the year. I think they've just been so far ahead. Like I said in the previous question, that I think it's Verstappen's world, and we're all just living in it until further notice. So that's going to be my prediction until we see enough evidence otherwise. I think it's pretty clear at this point who's in good shape, and that's Red Bull and Red Bull only at this point. I don't think that there's any reason for me to believe that this is a golden opportunity. This is a track that really fit. Red Bull are just too far ahead. That's just my opinion. Do we have Josh again?
Josh, can you hear us?
I must apologize. I'm on a very big delay. We're having some problems. I'm on problems here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of interference coming. It's the systems playing up again. I apologize. What I was saying was, the one worry I've got about as you say, it could be the British Grand Prix that causes him to lose out. It could be. The one problem I've got is that we saw this in the cricket a couple of days ago. Protesters. We saw it last year at the British Grand Prix as well, down the Wellington Straight. Luckily, the race had already been red flagged. There's been some grumblings on socials that they're going to try again to get onto the circuit. And I'm very much alarmed about that. I'm begging everybody, if you're watching this and you're thinking about it, please do not. Whatever you do, all for protesting peacefully, but do not enter a live motorsport racetrack. You will get killed. You will get others killed. And being hit at over 200 miles an hour by a Formula One car, you may as well step into a blender. Do not do it. And I'm never more serious. I'm very fearful for the British Grand Prix, because no matter how high security is, they got on last year, and this year we've already seen them get into the snooker. They've got into the cricket grounds as well at Edgbaston, and I think Day One Lords they got in as well a couple of days ago. And I'm very, very worried that they'll be there at the British Grand Prix. Please do not do it. You will get killed, and nothing is worth dying for. I do mean that. So I'm very worried about that. So that's just the thing that I'm worried about, is whether something like that could affect anyone's Grand Prix that weekend. I know that wasn't the question, but that's one thing that I thought could stop him. And it's been alarming me all week.
Yeah, for sure, Josh. Definitely echo everything you said. We certainly don't want to see a horrific tragedy happen on the racetrack like that. And hopefully, when the British Grand Prix comes around, we'll be talking only about the on-track action instead of some fans trying to run, or protesters running onto the racetrack to try to prove a point, which could turn deadly really fast. But one of the major stories we're talking about right now is track limits. We saw a bunch of penalties been handed out throughout the race. Many drivers, including Lewis Hamilton, were handed a 5-second time penalty for exceeding track limits, and Yuki Tsunoda had a 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. Race control ended up deleting over 100 laps. During the race, Aston Martin filed a protest of race classification because they claim many drivers were not penalized for exceeding track limits. And moments before we came on the air, we got a full report of the time penalty. So I think Josh is the best person to ask, starting off this question. Josh, are the drivers to blame for pushing the track limits, or should the race stewards be at fault for creating this mess?
Right. this has been one of the most confusing Grand Prix I think we've ever had for track limits. It's been the track limits Grand Prix throughout the entire weekend. We've got a little monitor up here in the commentary box. It's only a little. It's like one of those office computers made by Dell. That's our timing screen, and on it we get little segments. We get the timings of the drivers and the sector times and the lap times, the gaps, the intervals. Then we get what tyres they're on, the strategies they've been on just alongside that. Below that, we get the world clock, which tells us where we are. Where the race is, and the Central European time as well. Then we get speeds of everybody, and then just alongside it, in a very long little corner box, we get race control messages. That was the most busiest part of the screen we've been looking at all day. Of all the monitors we've got up here in the commentary box to keep an eye on the Formula One, it was that tiny little right-hand corner of a Dell monitor that we got for £10 is what we were looking at throughout the entire race, because it was lap after lap. There was 1,200 lap time deletions in that race, and it was 71 laps long. That's insane, absolutely insane. In the end, it was officially 81 lap times deleted from everybody. That was crazy. And Megan was in the commentary box with me as well, and she was saying as well, we were looking at it together, and it was like, she was saying, they're only now showing lap 19. We're on lap 32. The race, they were so far behind. I was told by somebody at the circuit as well, one of the Aston Martin riggers who was de-rigging the garage, that when they looked across the timing screens as well, you know, the Aston Martin got the big garage with all the screens, the FIA's official messaging system was still pinging lap time deletions 90 minutes after the end of the Grand Prix. 90 minutes, and they were still coming through with new messages. No wonder it's taken them, what was it now, 6 hours, 6.5 hours to finish this race. It's been madness. It has deleted everybody. Here it is. We've got this on the screen now. I've got it on my iPad here in front of me. So Carlos Sainz has been given a 10-second time penalty. The same for Lewis Hamilton and Pierre Gasly and Alexander Albon. Then are you with me? 4 separate penalties for Esteban Ocon. 2 5-second time penalties, 2 10-second time penalties. So in total, he's dropped 30 seconds in this field. Then further down, Logan Sargent gets a 10-second time penalty. Nick de Vries gets both a 10-second and a 5-second, so 15 in total. And Yuki Tsunoda gets a 5-second time penalty. And I love this as well. Just reading the bottom of your screen there as well. The stewards very strongly recommended that a solution be found to the track limits situation at this circuit. So that is interesting. And the reason they gave for it as well, for 4 infringements, a 5-second time penalty. For 5 infringements, a 10-second time penalty. Then a reset has been allowed due to the excessive number of infringements. The counting of infringements restarts after another 4 infringements. A 5-second time penalty there will then appear, and after a 5, a 10-second penalty. That's what Ocon's done. He's got the most of anybody. 30 track limit excursions Esteban Ocon had, as that comes to his 30-second time penalty. It was chaotic. And I've never seen an end of the race like it. They can appeal that, and I reckon they will be appealing that. So this result is official, but no doubt in the British Grand Prix in 5 days' time when we get there and everything opens up again on the Thursday, are we going to be told about this? They're going to say, okay, this is how it's going to be. We're going to protest everything again. Do you want me to read out the official results? Well, I've got them here as well. Is that something you want me to do? Give me a nod if that's something. Yeah, okay. Right, here's the official result then with the adjustments to the penalties. So it's Max Verstappen. He's still victorious. 42nd career victory. Now moves ahead of Ayrton Senna. Charles Leclerc still stays second. Sergio Perez impressively up from 15th, stays third. Lando Norris now goes to 4th, with Fernando Alonso promoted to 5th. Carlos Sainz, the first of the ones with the penalty now, is in 6th. George Russell is 7th. Lewis Hamilton drops down to 8th place. Lance Stroll is 9th. And Pierre Gasly drops down to 10th position, the last World Championship point. Alexander Albon finished 11th, and despite all these penalties, doesn't progress into the top 10. He stays 11th. Zhou Guanyu is 12th. Logan Sargent with the penalty is 13th. Esteban Ocon drops 30 seconds outside the points. He now drops to 14th place. Valtteri Bottas is in 15th. Oscar Piastri 16th. Nick de Vries and the rest of the drivers with penalties. So Nick de Vries with a penalty 17th. Kevin Magnussen with the penalty 18th. Yuki Tsunoda 19th with a penalty. Nico Hülkenberg, the only driver not classified after retiring on lap 14. But he too got a penalty in the race for track limits. after he finished. So it was just penalties galore in that one as well. And that's about the official results we've got. But all that will change. I can guarantee you, by the time we get to Thursday for the British Grand Prix, the teams will lodge their counter appeals. Ocon had 10 violations. It was insane. Thank you, Josh T. We were working it out before I came on air because we just couldn't figure out what was going on. So we'll bring you an update on that on Grid tonight on Wednesday, because no doubt they'll already be lodging their intent to appeal by then.
That's ridiculous. I don't even know what to say to that. I guess that it's better to, once you're at 5 track limits violations, you might as well use your 6th, 7th, and 8th because it resets. It doesn't build from. I mean, I don't know. They got to look at that somehow and revise how they police that. I will say what I've always said though. If you don't want drivers using part of the racetrack, you want to talk about track limits, put some natural track limits there, whether it's grass or gravel or wall, put something there that incentivizes the drivers to not use it. That's the best track limit there is. And then we're not having these conversations because they're not using it because they can't use it, because if they use it, they're going to go off course or spin out or ruin their days. Racing drivers are always going to push for limits. And if there are limits to be pushed, then they're going to end up with a situation like we had today. So either install some natural track limits or, I guess, move the painted white lines over a little bit, since everybody seems to be running wide anyway. It's just absolutely ridiculous, and this can't become a norm. We can't be coming on here and talking about all these penalties and trying to do this math as to who finished in what position again, because it's absolutely ridiculous.
This reminds me a lot, guys. This reminds me of when we first had the safety car. 1973 Canadian Grand Prix. It took 6 hours to work out what the result was after all the penalties. This is it. This is our version of 1973's Canadian Grand Prix. Adam says one of the craziest F1 races I've watched in a long time. And he was in the comment box with us in Canada. Wrong says Nico Rosberg would never get a penalty, even in equal machinery. That's brilliant. Yeah, I bet he'll be doing something on his podcast saying about, well, I always stayed within the track limits. I mean, just look at 2016 in Austria. I was perfectly on the track, but Lewis, look at Lewis. He was off the track. He was off there. Look, he's behind the white line. I stayed on the white line as well. Yes, Nico, you forced him off the track and broke your front wing. You're not really in the best position to talk about it here. So, yeah, that'll be him. Sorry, he won the championship, didn't he? He beat Lewis Hamilton. Sorry.
That's what doesn't even matter.
Let's talk about pointless seasons.
Yeah, for sure. And this was really crazy how we saw so many violations for exceeding track limits. And if you do that on the Formula One video game, after just a few track limits, they're going to park you for the rest of the day. I like to be able to have 10 different chances to get track limits violations on the F1 games, but it's just really ridiculous, this situation. And as Josh said, if we get more developments on this story, we'll give you the updates on Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern time on Grid Tonight. And moving on, talking about Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton struggled with the track limits and the pace of the car. At one point, Toto Wolff acknowledged that they don't have a good car right now. Mercedes was outpaced by Lando Norris and the McLaren, along with the 2 Ferraris and Red Bulls. They were behind the Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso, when the race finished. Ben, are you surprised that Mercedes is still not 100% satisfied with the car? And do you think they can improve some more?
I'm a little surprised that they're fighting customer teams, to be honest with you. I thought Mercedes would have improved a little bit by now. I don't think that they're in a position where we could have expected them to be level with Red Bull at this point like they were in 2021. But, I said it earlier on in this segment here. We're coming up to Silverstone and the British Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton's home race. I don't see him having, that much more of a positive chance of winning that race as I do any other race right now. I mean, I just think Red Bull are so far ahead, and Mercedes, forgive me, I don't have the constructor standings in front of me here. I believe they're still second. They're about level with Aston Martin in that fight there. So I guess on paper they have the second best car and they're the closest, but I think it varies by circuit a little bit, and just on certain weekends where they happen to get the setup right or slightly wrong compared to the Aston Martins and Ferraris of the world. I don't know. I don't see Lewis having a great opportunity to win this weekend, this upcoming weekend in Silverstone. And I'm a little surprised that Mercedes are still as unhappy and unsatisfied with their car as they are here. So yeah, I don't I don't foresee anything massive happening to Mercedes or any fortunes changing in the not too distant future here.
This is how good he is, ladies and gentlemen. They've just been published this second, the official results from this race for the Constructors' Championship of Drivers. So Red Bull now on 377 points, Mercedes on 178. Red Bull are 199 clear. Just wrap it up now. That's pretty much it. Aston Martin 175. They've closed in on Mercedes after today. Ferrari 154. Alpine 47. McLaren 29. Haas on 11. Alfa Romeo 9. Williams 7. Alpha Tauri now getting 2 finally this year. Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen 229. Sergio Perez 148. Fernando Alonso 131. Hamilton 106, Sainz 82, Leclerc 72, the same as George Russell now. 44 for Stroll, 31 for Ocon, 24 for Norris, rounding out the top 10. Gasly on 15, Hülkenberg now 9, still after the race, of course. 7 for Albon, 5 Piastri and Bottas. 4 for Zhou, 2 for Tsunoda and Magnussen. Still no points for Sargent and De Vries after 9 races and 2 sprints. That is a surprise. But they literally just got posted around about 5 minutes ago. So well done, Ben.
Well, Josh, if I could just if I could come in and just bring up one point real quick for the American audience, Logan Sargent actually does technically move up from 20th to 19th in the standings today because he and De Vries both have a 12th place finish. Sargent's 13th today is better than De Vries' second best of 14th. So it's a technicality. They're both still pointless this season, but Sargent's no longer technically at the bottom of the standings on the driver's side this year.
And my goodness me, I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 messages from people in the pit lane who send me information from the pits as well, from the Journalist Centre as well, Media Centre. Yes, that is a technicality, but also I'd just like to say congratulations to yourself back there because it was your birthday recently, so happy birthday. I meant to mention that as well. So happy birthday. And also, we had an American winner in the Formula 2 this weekend with Jack Crawford taking a win. So well done. Stars and Stripes. Well done.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure we'll hear more about Jack Crawford's victory on the Grid Live encore show tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And going back to Mercedes for one last moment, I know it's been a challenging last couple of years for them. I'm not really sure what they can do this season to try to, I guess, salvage what's already been a lost season for Mercedes. I'm sure they had greater expectations this year compared to last year, but unfortunately, they just haven't been able to get the car there. So I guess they're just gonna have to hold on and wait till 2024 to see if they can finally get back up there with Red Bull and challenge for wins on a more regular basis, because right now it's a Max Verstappen world and we're just living in it. And next shifting gears to IndyCar, there's another driver whose world we're living in. We're going to say hello to Palou because it's an Alex Palou universe in the NTT INDYCAR Series.
Alex Palou just about had the flawless race today. One thing that didn't make it exactly flawless, you had a moment with Kyle Kirkwood. The two of them raced for position early on. Kyle Kirkwood got around Alex Palou, and then Kyle Kirkwood started getting passed by Palou. An incident occurred where Kyle Kirkwood ended up spinning around. Palou continued on with his race. We saw Kyle Kirkwood try to slow down Palou a little bit when Palou was leading, putting him a lap down, but that was nothing stopping Alex Palou today. He had a great race. Kirkwood's race was ruined. 3 in a row now for Alex Palou. This Chip Ganassi racing team is just looking unstoppable. The last time a driver won 3 in a row, it was his teammate that finished second, Scott Dixon. So Chip Ganassi, he knows how to have winners come out, perform. And that year, when Dixon won 3 in a row, he won the championship. So Kobe, starting with you, can Palou start point racing towards the championship?
Yeah, I think Alex Palou certainly has a big enough lead in the championship right now where he doesn't have to take many risks, that he can literally just be consistent, get top fives the rest of the way, and he can cruise on his way to this year's NTT INDYCAR Series championship, become a time IndyCar champion. And looking at the points, he has a 110-point lead over Scott Dixon and Newgarden in third, 106 back. Ericsson, who had a bad day, contact with his fellow countryman Felix Rosenquist at the start, 122 points back, and then Paddle Ward in fifth. What a drive for him coming from the very back of the grid to get a respectable result, 127 back to round out the top five. And it's just crazy seeing this amount of dominance from Alex Palou right now. I believe when you look at the points there for IndyCar, he has like a 2-race advantage right now, so he could literally set out the next 2 races and he'd still be the championship leader. That just shows, it puts into perspective of how dominant Palou is being. I never say never, because there's still a lot of racing happening. Well, there's still a lot of racing left to go in this year's IndyCar season. But Palou, he's performed so well during this first half of the season. In the second half, all he has to do is just be consistent, and I think he can definitely make a run to the championship. The rest of the field really needs Palou to start having some bad luck if they want a legitimate shot to win this championship.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Verstappen has just been absolutely dominant these last several months here in the IndyCar Series. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, this is a series that's not like Formula One in that sense. It's built to manufacture parity here and make it extremely difficult for somebody to go out and do what Alex Palou has done here, winning 4 of the last 5 races. He could be on a 5-race win streak if he hadn't had that incident in the Indianapolis 500, which he still recovered from to come back and finish in the top 5. So, I mean, Palou is just on an absolute stretch of dominance in this series right now. It's very hard for me to see anybody challenging him for the championship at this point. I don't know that he's necessarily going to start just, letting people past and points racing in that regard, playing it as conservative as possible, because I don't think that's who Alex Palou is. Of course, you don't want to take unnecessary risks if you find yourself trying to move up into P7 on a green flag pit stop cycle or something like that. Of course, you're not going to take an unnecessary risk if you're in his position. But I do think Palou is at a point where, if it were in his nature, if he did want to just, take a couple races off, even as Kobe mentioned, I think he could do that and still be in a pretty good position to walk away with this championship, because he and that number 10 team are firing on all cylinders right now. And it's hard for me to envision anybody challenging them for a championship at this point in the year, or the way it's going right now, any race win. He just seems to be unstoppable at this point.
Very glad it's me now as well. But I've just been replying to so many text messages as well from the Formula One stuff as well. But back to the IndyCar, I've got my notes here in the commentary box. Absolutely brilliant race, I thought, today. And Alex Palou, me and Joe talked about it yesterday in the pre-show. We said, could he go one better? He's been 3rd here in 2021, 2nd here last year. Now he's taken a win here as well. It was calling. It was written in the stars to be that brilliant as well. And absolutely loved the fact as well that he's now won 3 in a row, 4 this season total. Leads the championship by, 110 points. Memorizing that to Scott Dixon, who finished 2nd in this race. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Is he racing towards the championship? Yes. Has he racing towards the championship since he started winning and got his confidence back? 110% yes. He has been fantastic. He is the driver to beat out there, and he's proving now he's not just a one-time champion and it wasn't a fluke. He is now back up after a couple of difficult years in 22 and 23. He's going to be there, and I'm very much looking forward to him fighting in this one now and fighting for the control for the rest of the season, because we've got some interesting tracks coming up that we just can't wait for. Iowa will be fun. And that's when O'Ward and Dixon are going to start coming back into this one as well. It's not over yet, but we're in for a very interesting end to this title.
I think he is about to ready to wrap up this championship. I think once we get to Toronto, if you have a solid finish, you only have the 3 ovals, then you got tracks where Palou knows how to win. Portland, Laguna Seca. You got a couple wild cards with the Nashville Street Course. That's going to be coming up. So overall, I think he is getting to the point. If this was the halfway race, he could start point racing towards the championship. Toronto, if he could have a good race there, that'll just make his life much easier for the remainder of the season. And of course, July 16th is when everyone will be at Toronto. That's realistically when Alex Palou can start mathematically eliminating drivers from the championships. One of those drivers still mathematically in it, Colton Herta. He won the pole. He was leading the first end of the race. He lost the lead, but he was still in contention. He had a different strategy compared to Alex Palou. But that second pit stop, caught speeding, had a drive-through penalty, finished outside the top 10. Tough break. Just one of those deals where he came in, the car got sideways. Did he push the button all the way? Did it not work? That's something Colton Herta and the team's going to be discussing about. And Colton's now on his third different strategist this season. Kobe, overall, is the pressure starting to get to Colton Herta and that team?
Yeah, it really seems like the number 26 team is really in a funk right now and trying to break out of it. Colton Herta's had some golden opportunities to get some wins in the last couple of years and completely blown it. I don't understand what's going on with this team. And I know a lot of people have said that they think Colton Herta has been too focused on trying to eventually get to Formula One and not focus enough on his day job in the NTT in the IndyCar Series, because with the way it's going right now for Colton Herta, throwing away a whole lot of points, he may not even finish the season in the top five in the standings and move up there to try to get those necessary points to get that FIA super license that he wants very badly. So you mentioned, Joe, he's on his third strategist this season. Started off with his father Brian Herta, then they split them up, and then Scott Harner moved over to Colton Herta's car, and we all remember what happened at Road America when Harner called Colton Herta in one lap too soon and ended up costing him the race because he had to go into max field save mode, and he wasn't able to contend for the win anymore after that. And then today had nothing to do with the strategist, who was Rob Edwards, now one of the executives at Andretti Autosport. Herta got really loose coming into the pits, and then mashed the gas to try to straighten the car back out and almost crashed at the entrance of pit lane, which is totally a driver error there. And I think we know what Colton Herta is capable of, and I still think he's capable of putting it all together, putting together that complete race. It just seems like right now that Andretti Autosport is still searching and searching to try to get all the right people in the right places on the business side of things there. And for Colton Herta, he still has a lot to learn. He's still a very young driver, and he definitely has a lot of time on his hands to figure all this stuff out that he's missing.
I hate to say it, because Colton's an incredible young talent, and like you mentioned, Kobe, he's still got plenty of time to, establish himself. Wherever he goes in his racing career, is one of the all-time greats. I certainly would not put that past him. But the way he's looked recently, he doesn't look like a driver that we would have been advocating for them for the FIA. That is to say, we'll make a super license exception for you because it just hasn't worked out mathematically, but you've ended up with enough points, but clearly you've got the talent to make it in Formula One. Colton Herta's clearly got the speed, clearly got the raw talent. We all can see that, but the race results are not showing it. And part of the reason the race results aren't showing it is because of the mental errors and mistakes like he made today. And they just continue to get in the way of potential race wins. And those potential wins that go unfulfilled cost points. And those points lower him in the standings. That's ultimately why he doesn't have a super license right now. So it's an unfortunate situation, but I think absolutely to answer the question, if it's not the pressure, something is certainly getting to Colton Herta and the number 26 team over at Andretti.
One of the big things, the pressure seems to be getting on that team. I think it's getting to the point where it sort of reminds me a little bit of what we saw in the Cup Series when we saw Dale Earnhardt Jr., the pressure getting on him. You're one of the big stars. You got to be going out getting the wins. It's just not happening. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens. I know, Josh, we talked about that yesterday. We also said yesterday, too, the top 10 finish for Graham Rahal will feel like a great day. Got that top 10 finish, but he had to stall on pit road, unfortunately. That cost him some valuable time, valuable positions. Still, great effort for him. Christian Lundgaard, also in the top 10. Overall, it seemed like that team was really on a drive today. But could that carry over next race weekend at Toronto, or do you think this was just more the home track, that home momentum feeling, and all the notes and experience they have there?
Looking back at the way this season has been, you would say it was home track heroes sort of syndrome kicking in, getting an extra couple of seconds. I would really hope that this is the start of something good for them. I would really hope that this is a good season for them, but I can't say it will be because of what we've seen this year. The misery at Indianapolis. This is their one joy of the season. But I'd hope many more come because Rahal was second on the grid. He had pole until Herta took it by, 0.063 off the top of my head on the pole grid as well. Hang on. Give me notes. Yeah, 0.063. So that was impressive. Mega impressive. And it did slip back. He stalled it because he got told to stop because the wheel wasn't on correctly. So they had to do the wheel at the same time, and he stalled it leaving away. So that's why he had that restart on pit road. But I would really love to see Graham Rahal get a win this year. Really love it. And I think looking at the tracks that we've got coming up as well, there's not many I would say that he's going to be like, yeah, this will do it. I thought this was his best. Did it in 2015, of course. We saw that on NBC in their little graphic clip. So this was their best one. It's not going to be the best one anymore. So that's a shame.
Yeah, for sure, Josh. And for Graham Rahal to perform as well as he did on qualifying, starting on the front row, and for Christian Lundgaard, Jack Harvey, that whole team to do this at the team's home race, I think this was definitely the shot in the arm that they needed to try to build some momentum as we get deeper into the second half of the season. But I have to agree. I think looking at what Rahal and Lundgren Racing has been able to do throughout the season, there's been a lot of inconsistency across the board, and then the awful, horrendous, not so good Indianapolis 500, which saw the number 15 get bumped, and Harvey and Lundgaard not have great races at all. The entire month of May was a disaster for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. So I think they can definitely take this weekend as a positive with the good qualifying results. I'm sure they really wanted more in the race, but I certainly think that they should try to focus on the positives and try to build some momentum as we continue to close this season out. And yeah, I'm sure it would be great to see Graham Rahal get a win, because NASCAR Man said on Twitter, this stat from Graham Rahal said the last time Graham Rahal won an IndyCar race, the schedule included Phoenix, Pocono, Watkins Glen, and Sonoma on the same year. So it's certainly been a long time for Graham. And we also want to mention something else that's going on. One of the drivers who made some rivals today was Benjamin Peterson. Christopher DeHart posted a video on Twitter showing Scott McLaughlin confronting Benjamin Peterson after the race because Peterson, he was a lap down, racing the leaders all throughout the day. Instead of pulling off to the side, let the leaders go on about their day, he just kept fighting them like he was up front of the field, and that really upset some of the drivers. And if you saw David Malukas' post-race interview on USA Network, then you see he was also upset with Benjamin Peterson. So the AJ Foyt racing rookie is not making any friends out there.
We saw a lot, even Palou, as he was trying to lap him, which we all anticipated, but then just every driver just seemed to have a hard time with Benjamin Peterson today. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens to Benjamin if he gets a talking to from some of the veterans. Alex Palou, he's driving like he's a long-time veteran. 110-point lead, as we've mentioned. The last 17 years, the championship has come down to the last race. At this pace, that might end. But the battle for second place, I think that for sure is going to come down to the last race. We have a big battle going on there. Of course, Scott Dixon's second. You have O'Ward, who's in that hunt. Came back from 25th starting position. Really, Marcus Ericsson, he was there, but that mess up on the first lap ruined his day. He lost second place in the points. And then Joseph Newgarden, very quiet day overall, but we know, especially Iowa, he's a threat to win. He can't be counted out yet. Josh, starting with you. Is climbing to second place sort of the main goal for every drive right now? Don't focus on the championship Palou. Try to claim second, and then can they chase down Alex Palou?
Palou's in a situation where he's running away with it at the front, so he's going to just remain calm for the next couple of races. I would say the next 3 races across Toronto and the 2 races at Iowa are going to be focusing, as you say, to get to second place. Then in the final 4, get on to run for the title. We've got another oval coming up. What's after Iowa? We've got, off the top of my head, I don't know. So I know we've got Portland, obviously. Then we've got WeatherTech Raceway. Then we've got the final round at Laguna Seca. It's the IndyCar road course. So 4 races left after that. So then focus going forward. And Nashville too. Nashville's coming out. That's always a crazy race. So there's a ton of time left. Focus on the next 3 races. Close up on Palou. Palou's not going to win the double in Iowa. I don't even think he'll be even close to it. That's always a track that suits the McLarens. It suits the Penske's. It suits the Chip Ganassis. It's not going to suit Alex Palou much because he never really does well on ovals. So that's going to be fun. And then we'll go forward from there. So 3 races, close up to second, back, go for the title after that. then we'll deal with it.
I think at this point, if you're
You
trying to
will.
chase down Palou, you might as well just go for broke and try to win every race, gain as much points as you can. And if Palou has some bad luck, maybe you find yourself back in the championship. Maybe you don't. But I think everybody right now, I don't know if it's a matter of thinking first place in the championship's the goal, or we're all fighting for second. That's the goal. I think at this point, Palou's so far ahead, you just try to maximize every weekend and go win every race. And again, if you do that, and if you end up closing in on the championship and it gets a little bit closer after the next few races, maybe you're in striking distance, you go from there. But at this point, I mean, obviously it's every driver's goal to win every race that they enter, but I think that's even more apparent at this point in the year with how big of an advantage Palou has in the championship standings.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it's going to be a tall task to catch Alex Palou at this point. And as I said, Alex Palou has such a big championship lead right now that all he really has to do is finish inside the top 10, inside the top 5, and have trouble-free days, and he can just really cruise onto the championship right now. In order for the field to have a legitimate chance, Alex Palou is going to have to run into some trouble and have a race retirement or so to try to get the others back into the fight. Like I said, it's not over until it's over. But right now, Alex Palou can just put the car on cruise control, while the rest of the field is going to have to try to find an edge, find something to try to take the fight to Palou in that 10 team, because as we've been saying on the show the last several races, their chemistry is unmatched. It's something that you don't really see often in the NTT INDYCAR Series, and to the point that Ben brought up, the INDYCAR Series, one of the most competitive racing series in the world, and for Palou to have this such a success in such a competitive racing series is truly remarkable.
Yeah, one of the big things, Toronto, Palou's best finish there, 6th place. When you look at Iowa, 6th place, but then you have Indianapolis, the road course, he's won there. Nashville, he has a podium there. Gateway, that could be another great opportunity. His best finish there, 9th, but then he's won in Portland, he's won Laguna Seca. Tall order for everybody to try to catch up to Alex Palou, and we are just about out of time. We are going to thank everyone once again for tuning in to this Grid Life wrap-up. Of course, the Encore show will have the NASCAR Cup Series results from Chicago. That's going to be starting up in about 15 minutes. So we encourage everyone to be sure to check out Grid Live Encore tomorrow. That'll be coming up shortly to stream. A big thank you to our Patreon subscribers, Colin, Show, Mark, Rob, and David, for keeping us on the air. You too can invest in Grid Dark, link in the video description, as well as you want to do buy me coffee, buy a cup of coffee for any one of us here on the Grid Network team or for the Grid Network. And be sure to follow us on social media, gridranking.com, the latest articles, Grid Ranking on Twitter. Definitely be sure to follow us. Don't miss any. We have great tweets about all the latest news and updates from motorsports, especially if you're trying to stay under the brand new Twitter limit. And of course, definitely you're following us on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our programs. For Kobe Lambeth at the podium finish, Ben Schneider and Joshua Birch, link in the video description to their channels. I'm Joe Samuel. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.